Yes. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Christian MacDonald. I'm a solutions engineer here at Bigeye. I've been at Bigeye close to 2 years now, working with our customer success team, helping customers implement our data observability solution. So really ultimately helping them make their data and their analytics more reliable. And so I'm really excited today to be talking to you about how to specifically keep your Tableau dashboards more reliable with Bigeye. This is a topic that is really important overall, but also really important to me as someone who has built Tableau dashboards in the past and know how painful it is for all that work to build the perfect visuals and all this analysis just to lose that trust with the business in a single data incident. So it's a really important topic. I know that the ultimate purpose of these Tableau dashboards is to help the business make data-informed decisions. And if they're not reliable, then the business users can't trust the data in them and they can't make the decisions off of it. So it really defeats the purpose of the dashboards if they cannot be reliable as well. So I'm really excited to share a lot of the work that Bigeye has been doing over the years, and specifically some features that we've released recently to help organizations make sure that their Tableau dashboards are reliable. So that's the topic of today. But before I get into all the cool features of Bigeye, I want to start by kind of defining what it means to be reliable in the sense of analytics. So the actual definition of reliability, this is from Google, the quality of being trustworthy or of performing consistently well. And the key thing that I really want to kind of emphasize in this definition is that it doesn't have to be 100% correct all of the time in order for it to be reliable. Reliability really is more of a sense of trusting something to mostly be correct, and if not, knowing when it is not correct. So that means in sense of analytics, that means making sure data quality problems are at a minimum, so reducing the amount of data quality problems, but also reducing the time to resolving those problems. And then I think most importantly, it means communication with your end consumers, the end viewers of your dashboards. They should never have to guess when they're viewing your dashboard whether or not the data is accurate. If they have that second guessing in the back of their mind, then they're ultimately not going to trust the data and they're not going to make a decision off of it, which is, again, the main purpose of building these dashboards in the first place. So that's really, I want to emphasize, we're building trust with the business team and we're making sure that our data is performing consistently well. So things are typically correct and we're resolving problems in a fast manner. So what I want to walk through first is kind of a situation, it's a very common situation that we've seen with a lot of customers, and I know I've personally been a part of. It's not a fun situation to be of, but it's how teams are losing trust in their analytics very quickly. So let's frame the situation. It's 8 a.m. The VP of operation reaches out to the data team and says, "Hey, my dashboard doesn't look right." And the data team responds and says, "Okay, let me get the team together and we'll start solving the problem." Time goes on. Data team's been actively looking into it. VP of operation has to reach out again at 2:45 and says, "Hey, my meeting is soon. How are things going?" The data engineering manager, they still haven't fixed the problem. So they say, "Sorry, we apologize for the delay, but we're still actively solving the problem." And then because of that, the VP of operations is forced to cancel their meeting with the CEO because they can't look at the information that they need to make whatever decision they're trying to make or review whatever KPI they're trying to review. So unfortunately, the VP of operations has to say, "Yeah, analytics are down again, unable to meet." And so this is a really unfortunate but common scenario. And what's happening throughout this whole process is the trust is immediately decreasing. And in my opinion, the second that the business team has to reach out to the data team that there's a problem, the trust is instantly decreased, because it shouldn't be the job of the business to identify these problems. They need to know that the data team is actively monitoring their data so that they're being alerted when problems are arising, versus how this situation is, which is the business team telling them that there's a problem that they need to look into. So that right there reduces trust instantly. And then you get into not providing updates. The data team's not able to provide updates to the business of how the progress is going to solving these issues. So they're forced to reach out again, and the problem is still not solved. So again, more trust lost. And then when the data is most needed for a meeting to make the decisions, it's not available. So trust is totally lost in this situation, and it's definitely something we want to avoid and part of Bigeye's mission is to help these analytics become more reliable to avoid situations like this. So what if there was a new approach? And now there are a lot of different data observability companies out there, but Bigeye approaches this situation a lot differently. And we emphasize the end data assets, so those end Tableau dashboards in this example. And we're able to deploy monitoring backwards from those end data assets, which brings you a lot of use cases. And let me show you why. This is called dependency-driven monitoring. So the idea here is we're giving the power of data observability and monitoring your data to the analysts and the data scientists by saying, here's your Tableau dashboard, here's the tables that are directly used within this Tableau dashboard, and then here's everything that's upstream of those specific tables. Because data quality issues can come in any shape or form, in any part of the pipeline, and it's not easy to tell where. So we can't just monitor that end table that's used in Tableau. We have to monitor everything upstream as well to help the data team ultimately resolve the issues faster. So this is the idea of dependency-driven monitoring. The creators of their Tableau dashboards can quickly go into Bigeye, look for a Tableau dashboard, and then deploy monitoring to everything that's upstream of that Tableau dashboards. But it's also only going to look at the specific columns that matter for that Tableau dashboard. It's not going to look at all of the columns in the tables used. It's only look at the specific columns used. So that's ultimately only monitoring the things you care most about. And all of this is made possible with something we call Bigeye Lineage Plus. So Lineage Plus gives us the true column level lineage from source all the way up to your BI, your Tableau dashboards. And this includes some more legacy transactional databases like IBM DB2, MySQL, SQL Server, Postgres, your warehouses like Snowflake, Databricks, and then ultimately your BI tools of Tableau and Power BI. So this end-to-end column level lineage is what allows us to do dependency-driven monitoring and allowing analysts to say, here's my important dashboard, give me monitoring on everything that matters. So what about that lineage and those features makes the last situation we talked about different? How would that situation look like if we were using these dependency-driven monitoring features from Bigeye? Well, to start, the data team would first get the issues from a Slack message or a Teams message or Jira, ServiceNow, however you want to consume your alerts. The data team would get notified that issues are present for the CEO dashboard and for their underlying data assets. So they would get alerted, they would go into Bigeye, and as you can see in the top right of this slide, this is our lineage. So they would see, here's my retail dashboard, here's all the tables upstream of it. They'd be able to root cause the problem very quickly, looking at that lineage, and start solving it a lot quicker. So that's what the data team sees. They're getting preactively notified from a monitoring system versus from the business, and then they're able to root cause and solve the problem a lot faster using some of these tools. And then on the flip side of that, what the business sees, the VP of operations goes directly to his Tableau dashboard like he does every morning. But this time, instead of reaching out to the data team, he opens up his browser extension for Bigeye, and he gets a quick synopsis of whether or not he can trust the data that he's looking at. If he sees something that he doesn't quite feel comfortable with on the dashboard, he can look at the extension and it'll immediately tell him whether or not the data is healthy and whether or not he can trust the data that he's looking at. And that's going to really bridge the gap and provide communication to the business team without there actually being direct communication with the business team and the data team. Just by having that underlying monitoring system alert the data team and be able to present the information within Tableau itself gives both parties the information they need when they need it. So that's all great in slides, but let's go into an actual demo of what this looks like in practice. So I'm going to start off in Tableau. So for this demo, we are going to be a e-commerce record selling company called Tunes of Our Youth. And in this dashboard, we're looking at things like the number of orders, the average price per unit, and how things are getting paid for our e-commerce business. And if I'm the VP of operations, I'm looking at this dashboard, you'll see, I see this massive dip here at the end, and that doesn't look right. And I need to report on what my sales were for yesterday. So I need to figure out what's going on. Rather than pinging the data team, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the browser extension in Chrome, and it's going to look at Bigeye, find all of the monitoring that's done on this dashboard, and give this user a quick synopsis of if they can trust the data. Now, going from the top, this is our CEO dashboard. That's the name of the dashboard we're looking at. And then instantly it tells me the quality is accurate. So I know just by looking at this whether or not I can trust it.
Christian?
Yeah.
Can you zoom in on this tab at all? Perchance?
Is this better?
Really. Yeah, it's just kind of hard to see when it's like zoomed out. I don't know if this like works, but
for the browser extension. So if I do this.
Yeah, that's fine. It just when it's like zoomed out more, like you can't really read it or anything, and I feel like people on LinkedIn might not be able to like see the text.
Okay, is this good enough, or should I try and zoom in more?
Yeah, no, that's fine. This is like much more readable. Anyway, sorry.
No, you're good. I'm going to start over on this one.
Yeah, just for the demo portion.
Yeah.
If you don't mind. Thanks.
Okay. I need to take a breath anyways. I feel like I haven't breathed in like 30 minutes. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so now I'm going to get into the live demo of how this actually works. I'm going to start off in Tableau. For this demo, we're going to be a online resale company for albums or records. They're called Tunes of Our Youth. So for this Tableau dashboard, we're going to look at the number of orders we're getting per day, the average price per unit, and how things are getting paid for in what methods. So this could be a really helpful analysis for whatever sales team is looking at it, right? But if I'm the VP of operations, I'm looking at this dashboard and I see a massive dive here at the end. Let's say I need to report on my sales for yesterday, but I can't do that because this doesn't look right, doesn't feel right. So I'm going to open up my browser extension. And what this is going to do, it's going to look at the CEO dashboard within Bigeye and all of the monitoring that's deployed against it and give you a synopsis of, can I trust this data? So if I'm looking, top to bottom here, the CEO dashboard, that's the name of the dashboard. I've called it in Tableau. Quality, it's going to give me an overall quality. If there's any issues on any column for this particular dashboard or upstream of it, then it's going to tell me that it's at risk of data quality issues. So I instantly know whether or not I can trust the data. The next thing it's going to do, it's going to tell me what the pipeline status is. And this really refers to the freshness of the data. So what Bigeye does is we use anomaly detection and we monitor your data over time as it gets refreshed and more data is added to it. And if data is not updated on an expected schedule, let's say it's updated like a day later or 2 days later, then this would be considered stale data according to the schedule and the data that we've seen for the table. So it's considered anomalous and the data is stale. So it would say stale data that you're looking at. Because sometimes the problem is the data just hasn't been refreshed. The data could be perfect quality, but it hasn't been updated yet. So it's stale data. But in this particular example, we have a data quality problem. So it's listed as at risk, but everything is updated on time. And then really from a business user's perspective, that is all I need to know for whether or not I can trust the data in this dashboard. Just those two key metrics right there. However, if I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into how the monitoring is for this dashboard, there's a couple cards here to help me do that. The first one is it's going to look at how much monitoring is deployed on the upstream objects from the CEO dashboard. If this was, if we only are monitoring like 20% of the columns that are upstream of this CEO dashboard, then that would be concerning because we don't fully know whether or not there's a problem because we're not monitoring enough. In this particular example, we're monitoring 22 of the 28 upstream objects, which may or may not be acceptable for your current situation. And then we're looking at metric health. So of all the monitors of the metrics that we've deployed upstream of the CEO dashboard, 48 out of 63 are healthy. So that means there should be around 15 issues that are open for this dashboard. And so what Bigeye does, again, is we have these metrics. where we're tracking the values over time. And if a given day is, too high or too low based on historical data, then it would be deemed anomalous and create an issue. And then this would ultimately update this browser extension on this Tableau dashboard to tell the business users that there's problems. We then try and say business user language. We try and like summarize what the types of problems are so that a business user can understand better. Maybe they want to know exactly where the problems are. This can help them better understand what that is. So it says the data driving this dashboard, it's unique and it's valid, but it has unexpected null values and has unexpected value distributions. So those two things, we have null values and we have unexpected value distributions. So those are the problems that the data team is currently solving. And then this last card is going to give you more details around the open issues and how the data team is actively solving those issues. So for the pipeline, we obviously have no issues right now. We're good to go. But for quality, we have 15 open issues. All of them are in triage, which means a data team member has not picked them up to start working on them yet. They're still actively trying to figure out what the problem is. It was first detected 21 hours ago, and the data team last updated it 39 minutes ago. So that's what we know. We know the data team has been made aware because we have these issues. We know they've been alerted from Bigeye. We can be comfortable that they're actively working on that problem. So that's what the business user sees. They instantly know whether or not they can trust the data on this dashboard. Now let's shift over to what it would look like from a data team member and the person responsible for building this dashboard. So if I go view in Bigeye, it's going to take us to our lineage. Now, typically, if I'm on the data team, I would enter Bigeye from a Slack alert or for a Teams alert or an email or whatever is alerting me that I have open issues. I would then enter Bigeye, find this lineage that I care about, and start to root cause and diagnose the problem. So as you can see on our lineage page, this is our CEO dashboard. Upstream of our CEO dashboard, we have a transactions page and we have a payment methods page. And those are directly feeding into our CEO dashboard. And for those pages, we reference these exact columns within our sales dashboard conformed schema. And then for our payment methods, we reference these columns within that same table. So if I'm looking at this whole pipeline, the way this pipeline is set up is we originally load data into Postgres, our transactional database, and then we move it into an S3 bucket, and then eventually it gets replicated into Snowflake. We do some transformations and eventually put it into a conformed schema within Snowflake that we then use for our reporting within Tableau. Because we always do reporting off of that conformed schema that has all of those transformations that we need to visualize. So the first thing that I would do to try and diagnose this problem is find the root cause. Where is the problem originating and where do I need to go look into the systems to figure out why this problem is occurring? So I have two root causes in this example. I have one root cause for the order ID on our sales dashboard table. So that might be an issue with the transformation job that loads into the conform schema. And then I have another root cause. My price per unit has issues. But if I trace it all the way upstream, I can see that the root cause is on the orders table in Postgres. So that's interesting. And that's something I want to click into further. So if I go into the issues for Postgres, let me do that again. If I go into the issues for Postgres, I'll see that there is an average alerting on price per unit and a minimum alerting on price per unit. You can see that things are typically hovering around $14, $15 on average. And then for some reason, this last day, everything drops down to $8 on average. And the minimum drops down all the way to 0. So that's definitely a problem that I need to look into more. So let's say I want to click into this and figure out more about this minimum alerting on price per unit. Now, if I'm an analyst and I'm responsible for creating a Tableau dashboard, this might be the end of my job. I might not be responsible for actually updating the data within Postgres. That might be an engineer's job. Let's say Kendall's responsible for updating the data within Postgres. I would assign it to him and then, send them a comment or a message and say, hey, this is affecting our CEO dashboard. And then move on about my day because I've root caused the problem. I've informed the person responsible, and then they can go forward. However, let's just say, for example's sake, that I own the entire pipeline and I need to actually solve this problem. then if I was entering in this ticket, I would see this issue. The first thing I would do is I would go to the debug tab and look at the debug query. And it's going to show you the exact rows that are creating this anomaly where that price per unit drops below 4. So where that price per unit is 0. It's going to show you those exact rows so you can then very easily diagnose the problem. Okay, cool. So let's go back to that issues. This is a pretty important step, but as a data team member, let's say these issues are still in triage. If I want to update the business team without having to reach out with them, what I would do is I would mark these issues as acknowledged. Say, okay, we've looked into these issues, we've acknowledged them, and we're actively working on these problems. And what this does, if we flip back over to the perspective of the business user real quick, is if I refresh this, what this does is when they're looking at the issue details, you'll see 2 tickets have now been moved to in progress, and they're last updated right now. And so that's really useful because as business team members keep coming back to this dashboard, if they're really trying to get after their information and they need the information and they keep refreshing their browser extension, they're going to get those updates from the data teams as they're actively working through solving those problems. Because they're moving the tickets to in progress, they're acknowledging them, or when they're closing them out when they're done. So that's a really useful thing for teams to know, is that when the data team is working through problems in Bigeye and they're updating the status of the tickets, it also gets reflected to the business team through the browser extension. So that's all great, but I want to make sure that people don't think that this is all like hand wavery and magic, and I had to do a lot of work to set this up beforehand, because it's really not. So I'm going to go to a brand new workspace and show you what it looks like to deploy the monitoring from the dashboard in the first place. So if I go over to Scotty's workspace, you'll see that everything is completely unmonitored. So this is the equivalent of not having Bigeye. You have this important dashboard, but nothing's monitored. Nothing upstream of it is monitored. You can't know for sure whether or not the data is healthy. And so if I am the creator of this dashboard, I would want to make sure that I'm deploying all the monitoring that I need to inform me when problems occur so that the business team is not the one doing that. So what I would do is I would head over to Bigeye. You'd see our lineage. It looks a little bit different now because everything is grayed out because no monitoring has been deployed. But it's the same exact lineage. What I would do is hit this big blue button that says deploy metrics to dashboard. It's going to give me options to configure metrics myself, or I can just use Bigeye's recommendations that we call auto metrics. If I click that auto metrics button, go next, it's going to list out all of the different metric types that we're going to deploy on only the columns used within that dashboard. So it's going to go to everything upstream of this dashboard and deploy these recommended metrics to make sure that you have the adequate monitoring. And the other thing that it's going to do is it's going to backfill your data for 21 days so that we can instantly do anomaly detection from day 1. Because once you run these, it's going to look at that 3 weeks, the 21 days of history. And so it's going to give us enough data to be able to do anomaly detection on those models. And so the next time it runs, we'll be able to know whether or not things are healthy. So I have all these metrics. I'm just going to choose all of the recommendations. I'm going to hit next. And then it's going to ask me who's the owner of these metrics. And by default, that's just going to be myself because I'm creating the metrics. You can also assign those to a different team member if you wanted to. And then it's going to ask me to add the metrics to a collection. And this is definitely a recommended best practice from Bigeye. Let's say I wanted to create a collection called the CEO dashboard. And I give it, say, all metrics for my CEO dashboard. What collections allow you to do is to route notifications for all the metrics to a single spot. So if you care about all of these metrics and you definitely want to get alerted, you can add them to a collection, and within the collection, you can add a specific Slack channel, an email address, or a Teams channel, or anything like that. And it's going to make sure that those notifications are sent to the people that need to know about the CEO dashboard and if there's any problems for this particular dashboard. So that's it. What this is going to do when I hit deploy is it's going to deploy 14 table level metrics. So that's freshness and volume level checks on all 7 tables upstream of the dashboard. And then it's going to do 31 metrics on the 12 columns that feed into the dashboard. So it's going to deploy all of that monitoring for me when I hit deploy. And again, it'll take a while for the queries to run, deploy all those metrics, get all the history. But what I really wanted to show there is we didn't do a lot of hand wavery to create these metrics. It's really just deploying the metrics to dashboard, and it's going to do everything upstream. And it's going to give you that monitoring when a business user comes into this dashboard. So awesome. That's the demo. Just for a quick recap, we looked at a particular situation in which there was a data quality problem on the CEO dashboard. We looked at it when monitoring was already deployed, and how the data team can use Bigeye's lineage to find root causes quickly and solve those problems, and then how the business team can stay up to date on how the data team is working and if there are any problems for that dashboard. And then we looked at how to actually deploy that monitoring against a brand new CEO dashboard. So that's the end of the demonstration. I now kind of want to get into frequently asked questions. If you have any questions, you can also put them into the chat, and we'll definitely be answering those for you. But some of the frequently asked questions that we get in regards to Tableau and how we support dependency-driven monitoring. One of the questions we get in particular for Tableau is, can we monitor Tableau's calculated fields? So if you're unfamiliar with Tableau,
really quick, can you just put it back into present mode before you do the FAQs? You don't need to like fully start over. You can just do it like from the slide.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I can do that.
Thanks.
All right. So one of the questions we get very commonly for Tableau is, can we monitor Tableau's calculated fields? And if you're unfamiliar with a calculated field in Tableau, it's basically Tableau gives you the power to make further transformations to your data by performing some sort of calculation in a visualization. So you can make a calculated field and then for revenue or something, and then you can make a visualization off of that calculated field. So Bigeye does not currently support monitoring those calculated fields, and as industry like best practice, we only monitor the data that's in the conform schemas used for the Tableau dashboards. So if you're keeping all of your business logic within a particular table for Snowflake or Databricks or whatever warehouse you're using, if you're keeping all of your business logic and all of your important fields there, like you're keeping a revenue field within your warehouse, then you can create your visuals not only for that dashboard, but for every other dashboard across your company, so that things aren't getting recalculated in different ways in different places. So we only monitor what's in the actual databases themselves, not what's custom calculated in Tableau. The next frequently asked question that we get is, how often is Tableau lineage updated? Let's say you are making a bunch of changes to your Tableau dashboard and you want the updated column level lineage. Our lineage is updated on whatever schedule makes sense for the customer. It could be updated on a particular schedule or on an as needed basis. It typically takes, could take 24 or 48 hours depending on the size of the enterprise that we're talking about. But it can be updated as needed or on that particular schedule. And then the last frequently asked question we get is, what other BI tools do you support? Right now, to the level of feature parity that we talked about in this demonstration, Tableau and Power BI. So that includes the extension and all of the column level lineage from Snowflake into Tableau, or from whatever source you have into Tableau. That's currently only supported for Tableau and Power BI. But we are actively working on several others, and we're constantly trying to add more tools into our wheelhouse. So if there's something that I didn't mention, please do reach out to us, and we'd love to have a conversation about how and if we can support it. But that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening to me. If I said anything interesting, or if you want to learn more about how Bigeye could work for your organization, then please scan this QR code and schedule a demo with us. We'd love to talk with you and figure out if we can help out. Thanks. Okay, I'm done.